And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Video Series. Today's Zanpakuto Creation Series video comes to us from... Who gave me the suggestion again? One second. I'm providing it, folks. I was almost fully prepared, but not quite. This comes to us from Luke Morehouse. That's who it is. Who asked the question, what would the Zanpakuto of Dr. Bright from the SCP universe be? Now, I have done an SCP character before. I have done the Plague Doctor. And for some, the problem is, while personality is certainly exhibited by certain sentient SCPs, it's not always the same in other cases. Furthermore, you have to understand who Dr. Bright actually is. And this is just one image of Dr. Bright. This person right here is not Dr. Bright. Dr. Bright seems to be some sort of sentient being that exists within the amulet around that person's neck that takes over the body of the host that they are involved in, and is actually just in general a very helpful and friendly person. They're not evil at all. That's the thing. But that is the person that is the individual with whom we're looking at. Now, going by what we know of Dr. Bright, I do believe he'd be a Havakido type. This will also be very interesting because if you were to theoretically put this amulet on like a low-class Soul Reaper, every time it would turn into Dr. Bright. And so if they had a Zanpakuto that was one type of Zanpakuto or whatever, it would theoretically turn into that Zanpakuto, that character's Zanpakuto, his Zanpakuto. I think it'd be a sealed katana. Someone asked me, are like all these guys Zanpakuto's katanas? And I said about 90% of them. That we see that the majority of Zanpakuto take the form of a katana. The exceptions to that would be Ichimaru Shinso, I believe, is actually the form of a Tanto, but in his Shikai, it can just extend to whatever length he wants. We know that Soifon's Zanpakuto is a Wakizashi. Both Kenpachi and Shunsui, technically speaking, Shunsui has a Kodachi or a Nodachi, and a Wakizashi. And Kenpachi's is kind of unique in its own. It's the length of like a Kodachi, but it's not. Everyone else, though, mostly just has a standard katana. I believe Iba has a Tanto as well. Trying to think if any other Soul Reaper has anything. Like there are exceptions. There are other Zanpakuto like swords out there. It's just they're far and few between. So yes, a sealed katana. Now, what would the release be? The release, I believe, is something called would be Breakout Enjoy. And then its Shikai's name would be Golden Changeling. The Bankai's name would be Multiform Treasure of Gold. Now, this would translate to the name of, Google Translate. I believe it's Godro Chanjio. Obviously, that's not quite the name. It's Google Translate. And then the Bankai is Kinno Machu Itoriga. God, I'm butchering that. Either way, that's what the Shikai translate and Bankai translate kind of out to. The spirit would be that of a young boy in chains, not like gross or anything like that, but it'd be like a kid in chains. But he wouldn't be, he wouldn't be like in sorrow. He would just be happy-lucky. Just chains would just happen to be his motif. Now, the sword itself, would so it would maintain its shape basically. Now I don't have any images this time around because there's really nothing that really there's nothing that really kind of fits what I'm aiming for here. But basically it maintains the form of a blade, except the blade is basically now into multiple, it looks almost cracked, but you can see Ryatsu like glowing throughout the cracks. So it technically has the form of blade. It can be used as such. It's just in a different form. And it takes the form of something more like cracked, held together by energy. In the Shikai form, basically, objects that are struck by the blade break apart and then reform to the user's will. Essentially, he can kind of just break down stuff and reform it to his own will, more or less. Now, this is only, possible by actually striking with the blade. So it is something that can only work at close range. But if you were to cross blades or something, as long as his Ryatsu overpowers his opponent's Ryatsu or whatever Ryatsu he's using against, then he'll be able to break it apart and reform it, not necessarily into whatever he wants, like, oh, I just struck this sword, I'm going to turn it into pudding. But he could basically reform the sword into like a ball or something like that. Basically just restructure its form. The Bankai of this, the shards would split apart, piercing the target, piercing targets in the target's spirits or Ryatsu's soul, except basically piercing the target all the way. And with any and all targets struck with the shards, basically, they can basically be formed and just split apart, more or less. As long as his Ryatsu and Bankai, which would be multiplied because the Bankai is able to overpower the opponent, whatever the shards pierce, it literally just starts to split and break apart, and again can be reformed. But now it's like anything around him, and he can do it to multiple objects at once. Now, the weakness of the Zanpakuto would be the Shikai is limited in uses of knowledge of structures. Like, you need to know the structural composition of something, like how atoms work and all that. You can't just say, it's like, haha, I turned this piece of rubber into wood, or I turned this rubber into... No, you need to have structural knowledge of something. It's kind of like Momo from My Hero Academia, where she needs to know the chemical makeup of something. So there is that. The Shikai is only solid in melee combat, so there's that. The Shikai has no range. Cannot control, as I said, cannot control stronger Ryatsu. And the Bankai, despite its abilities, doesn't actually have a very strong offense to it. Like, it doesn't actually have attack potency per se. It's just a supplement ability that has a very, it can be positive offense ability. It can be very positive in terms of an offensive ability per se, but it's how you use the ability. It's kind of like, it's basically Urahara's blade to some degree. It's Benihime's ability to restructure things, take it to a kind of different level. But it's not the same as Urahara's blade. Urahara's blade, especially in Bankai, has range. It doesn't have a long range. It still has range. He actually doesn't need to touch anyone with the blade in Bankai. Whereas with his Shikai, Dr. Bright does have to touch someone with the blade. And then with the Bankai, it's more like rapid fire, and the ability to, just hit multiple targets and kind of just reassemble them or split them apart if he needs to. So that for me is Dr. Bright's Zanpakuto. That is just my opinion, though. I could be very far off on that in terms of what I think this kind of Zanpakuto would be for this character. Let me know in the comments below if you feel different. And if you do, that's cool. Let me know in the comments below. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.